This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, episode 25 of the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grimsforge Gaming and myself, Icy with Icyfire Gaming. How you doing, Grim?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So one of our new recruits to the Discord channel, Vex, he posted a portrait that his sister drew, and I thought it was really cool that I got his sister's information and I made a request for her to draw two of my mains, my PvP and PvE healers, and I'll throw an image up so everybody could see. But I think she did a pretty awesome job, and I like it a lot. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that she could do a portrait of them.
Yeah. Do you have contact information for her for other people to reach out if they want a drawing or painting?
Yeah, so her handle, I think, is Morgan Palm. That's her, I guess, like signature that she puts on her stuff. And I'll put a link below for her DeviantArt so people can check her out and reach out and stuff. She doesn't have too much on there, but I think it's gonna slowly ramp up over time. So
Yeah. So for like the content creators like Illinois Valley, who's just been using, different gaming clips and stuff like that, he might be able to reach out to her and have something done specifically for him. So
yeah,
that'd be cool.
absolutely. Yeah, so that'd be pretty cool.
Thinking about you, Illy.
Yeah. So today we have a special guest, Unified Gaming. How you doing, man?
Hi guys. All good, thank you. Yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. What do you think about the extension of the Jubilee event for an extra 2 days?
I think it was needed. I kind of feel for the PS4 players. That was pretty savage what happened there, but it's nice for all people to get that. So it's always welcome to free XP.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm hoping, with all the Jubilee boxes I'm opening, I'm hoping I'll have an extra, I think like 90 something boxes to open over the next 2 extra days, so I can get that cipher that everyone's been getting except for me. So we'll see. What do we got, Grim?
We have to start the episode with Dan's catch line that he starts his videos with. Can we get that?
Yeah, okay. Hey, it's Dan. And welcome
Yes. Sorry, I'm so excited.
We do it again, but with the Three Skeevers podcast.
Oh yeah, let's see it.
Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to the Three Skeevers podcast.
That's awesome. We're done. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Oh Lord, we're barely 3 minutes in.
Yeah, hey, breaking records. So, Flames of Ambition is here. What's your initial thoughts on everything right now? Like with the no proc testing and Cyrodiil and the CP changes and just the world's turned upside down. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's rather odd in the sense for a new player that you can go into Battlegrounds, Imperial City, and use whatever you like. You can go into Cyrodiil and you have really strict rules, which they're not said in game, so it's really confusing. But I do think the Cyrodiil PvP is much more skillful, in my opinion, currently. So you kind of have the best of both currently, but I think it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. I think that's the real takeaway. It's too up in the air at the moment.
Yeah. How are you liking? Have you been out to Cyrodiil much?
Yeah, I've been in Cyrodiil a few times. So I've been in there on obviously the sniper and stuff, on Warden, Necromancer, just to try different things. And although build diversity is less, it's really, really fun. Like it's probably the most fun I've had in PvP in years, which is really sad to say, but it's so true.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Like Cyrodiil feels pretty good when you're not getting procced down by a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, that the Vate Destro, that's it's nice not seeing that on your recap.
Yeah, by 5 people. Like what the heck?
Yeah. How's the lag in Cyrodiil after the CP change has been?
From my end, so I play on PCEU, if people are unaware. For the first couple of weeks, the performance was significantly better. Like, yes, there's lag, there's no getting around that, and it happens when there's ball groups from what I see, but my skills work most of the time. I can actually use potions, and because of that, it just feels much more responsive. So with the obviously no procs as well, it's just such a fun way of PvPing. But it does get laggy in prime time, as can be expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they say that they were definitely gonna make 2 different servers, like a no proc server and a proc server, like in the future?
Yeah, last I had heard that's what they're doing. Can you confirm that, Dan? Like right now at this point they're planning on a no proc server to continue what everyone's experiencing right now, and then another server. So
Yeah, I think kind of going from that, there's been lots of debate between devs and forum members, and there's kind of little snippets here or there. So it's not like here's the information in one spot, but it seems like they're trying to find out, can they change the rules in one server so there's no procs, or there are some procs. So whether they limit them to maybe a specific set of procs, or whether there'll just be a proc campaign or not campaign for procs, it's not quite clear just yet, but I think they're exploring those options going forward. So we'd have to wait and see, really.
yeah, it's interesting that they announced a 6-month window for the no proc in Cyrodiil, and I think a ton of people, a lot of content creators that I talk to, and a lot of like true, hardcore PvPers, people that really enjoy PvP. I don't want to say hardcore, but they were excited for it. I would say probably 80% were excited for it. The other 20% were looking at it as having procs taken away from them, and that was frustrating for them. So, but the majority of the people were happy with the no proc situation and what PvP feels like. So, I don't know. What's your
Oh, one
go
more
ahead.
thing. So do you guys think that there should be we'll just, this is all theoretical, of course, but with all the PvP modes that exist, right? You have Imperial City, we include the sewers in that, BGs, Cyrodiil. You think there should be a proc and no proc section so people can pick whichever one they want to do?
Um, I think from a kind of end game perspective, yes, because you have access to all the sets. But from a new player perspective, it will be really confusing, and it might divide the PvP community, which that's what they had with the extension. Do they go for 6 months or 3 months? Half the people wanted yes, half the people wanted no. So I think from my perspective, yes, but I think a new player would probably want it just easier to understand that it works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So
And I think it needs to start on the proper default too for what they're queuing for. Something I've run into probably in the last 2 weeks with people that are looking for PvP training. One of the things during our conversations is I said, how are you queuing for your battlegrounds? Are you going in with friends? Or are you going solo? And they say, well, I'm going solo. And then I say, are you queuing solo? And they're like, what do you mean? Or they say, yes, I'm queuing solo. And then I say, well, can you do a screen share with me and actually show me the process of you queuing for battlegrounds? Because they're having a really rough time. They're like, I swear these people are playing together and I'm just getting mowed down and getting destroyed. And so we'll do a screen share and they'll show me. They're like, yeah, I just click this button, go here, click this button to join the queue. And I said, well, hold up. Top right hand corner there, it says you're queuing for a random battleground, but you're not queuing for a solo solo battleground. So hit the little drop down tab and change it to solo queue random battleground. And they're like, what? They have no clue. So I think if you're by yourself and you're not in a group, that needs to be the default. It default starts on solo queue, right?
I
And
I wouldn't even say that's the default on that. The default should just be whenever you click on battleground, this should just be blank, and then you have to say, hey, select which battleground you would like to do, so that you have to deliberately open up the drop down and then click which one you want, so that you could see all the options. I
yeah,
think that would be better, so that people can actually learn about the drop down and then make a choice instead of just having it default. Because I know me and you were both kind of confused in the beginning when it first came out. We were both, obviously when we weren't in a group, we were still queuing for a group solo. So that was a little bit frustrating.
And I've PvP'd once or twice. I was I was the same person. Now for me, I could hold my own, but I'm in these battlegrounds and I know the difference between a group running together and being built, as a group and being coordinated and not. Like, I know when I'm running around with just a bunch of randoms, and there were some battlegrounds where it was just super sweaty, like really, really coordinated. And I was like having to really put on my try hard pants, to be able to survive. And I was like, man, I swear these guys are running together. And 2 or 3 battlegrounds in a row, these 2 specific guys were really tough together. And I ran into them, and every time I ran into those 2, I really had to work for it. And I queued for the 4th or 5th time, and they were both on my team together. And I'm like, now what are the odds? Like, I didn't know the whole solo queue thing, and I'm like, why am I getting paired with people that are paired? Why am I getting paired with people that are teamed up? And so I asked them in chat, I said, are you guys in a group together? And he was like, heck yeah, we are. And I was like, what the heck? Why am I getting put with these people? That's fine, but need to know info. And so anyways, that's probably 3 of the people over the last 2 weeks have messaged me back, and they said night and day difference as far as experience. They're newer PvPers, and they were just getting run over by experienced people in parties together. So
Yeah, no, I think it is pretty rough. That I've seen that myself. I think I get asked a lot, kind of, how do you hold your own and stuff. And as you said, if you're in the solo against a group, you're going to get destroyed. Doesn't matter kind of how good you are. And for a new player, I can imagine being so frustrating. So I completely agree. They need to split it into either just make the graphic different, so that have it maybe on the left, on the right, so rather than up and down. But yeah, it's just really confusing currently.
Yeah. So a nice quality of life improvement for just for that UI right there would be really nice to see.
Yeah. What so how are you liking the CP changes, and what do you think that the CP has been doing for build diversity?
I think having played on CP and no CP quite a lot, and also PvE, that it really lets you specialize. Like before, and I think Is There No One Else and a few other creators have said it, that you could have all of it. Like in the old CP system, you had the same CP loadout whether you're a Nightblade or a Warden or a Templar. It was identical, whereas this one, it's like, oh damn, I'm going to build into crits because I'm a Nightblade and I'm attacking from stealth. And so I think build diversity, it really gives you that, I want this for my class, I want this for my class. And it's also true of healers. Like in the old system, you had all the healing boosts always given. Whereas if you want to be a healer, there are CP specifically just for that, and you have to slot it. So you can't have that bonus healing stuff without being a healer. So I think it's great. It's a bit complicated, especially UI. It's quite just like, damn, there's a lot of information here. But I think what they're trying to do with it is really, really good.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I was really kind of impressed. I know our first initial thoughts on it was the green tree was kind of a wasted, there's not a whole lot of stuff there. But when you really kind of delve into it and you're like, well, I could get 20% additional movement speed out of combat through the green tree, or make more money, or, make my food last longer, or,
Well, I mean, so that's I still think the green tree is a little bit sus because on all of my characters, they all run the exact same setup on the green tree. There's no differentiation on that, except for my main crafter, which has maybe 2 different slottables. But all my other characters, they all have the same green setup. And I mean, I don't know what that says about the game, but between the red and blue, yeah, everything's got like one or two different things here. So, to what you guys were saying, yeah, I can specify a bit for what I'm trying to do in my builds. But other than that, the green tree is literally exactly the same, 100% all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, trying to go first, Grim? Or-
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think with the green CP, I've recently farmed the Strangler set, the mythic item, and the green CP system seems very kind of situational. So there's a node in there that gives you fishing chance boost, so it helps you get better items when you fish, including leads. That was like really, really helpful for when I was trying to farm that set or that item, but I wouldn't use it normally. So it kind of feels like it's you add it when you need it, but then there's like just a blanket that's always on, which is basically movement speed. Like the mounts one, you get for the 20% in the mounts, you get the no mount drain. So I think it is very generic all the time, but then there's slight specialties that you use every now and again, which are, don't know, there's not much choice there, as you say.
Yeah. And most of your characters I see are crafters, so you're going to lean more into that stuff, right? Is that where you're at on it? Like getting the most resources back when you decon stuff and things like that?
No. So it's so the four slottables that I use are that are across the board. I think it's just I use the sneak, I use the speed one. I think it's kind of like Ring of Wild Hunt, the out of combat one.
Yeah.
The 30 or the extra hour you get for food, and I think it's liquid efficiency, 10% chance to not consume a potion when you use it. Those are the four I use.
Yeah.
That's it.
And,
But
and
oh, I was just gonna say, when Unify, from what Unify was saying, I guess it's because I don't do anything different. That's why they're all the same. But if I
right.
was doing more Cyrodiil based stuff, then yeah, I'd probably slot the mounts, the one that involves the mounts, and it's very situational. Yeah, if I was trying to get the master angler and I need to do fishing and stuff, yeah, I'd certainly slot the fishing slottable node. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Quality of life.
I said the one thing I wish they'd added with the green one though was the percentages. So a lot of them is like increase your chance to refine materials, but it doesn't tell you what that increase is. And that's the thing that bugs me. And it's like increase your fishing chance. I'm like, great. How much? Like, is it actually worth using or not? So I think that's the one thing I'd say they need to just clarify that what is the actual boost. But they do it really well with the enchantment cooldown, where it basically you can have it where it's 100% reduction on the enchantment drain, so it's free to use. And that tells you what it does. So it's great, really helpful. But the others not so much.
Yeah. And like isn't there one that's increased the quality of items in chests?
Yeah, it's those things. Literally those things like that. I think it bumps the chest up the next level, but that's because I've played the game and that's how some of the passives used to work and Lagurdaman and stuff. So it's just really confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Grim, that particular node right there, you said it improves the quality of an item, right, in a chest?
Yeah, I think that's what it reads as.
Yeah, so I think it just means that from like say an advanced chest, you would, instead of getting like a blue item, you would just get a purple item. Or like a simple item would give a purple item. Or a simple chest would give a purple item. Maybe even a legendary item or something like that.
See,
Probably not.
I thought in the old system it used to bump the quality up. So if you did a simple chest, when you opened it, it will upgrade it to an advanced chest, the loot table. That's how it used to work in the old system. So I just assumed they copied that across to the new one. But yeah, it's really
Okay.
confusing. So I don't really know how that works.
So if I find a master chest, I can pop that master chest open and there's a Ring of the Wild Hunt in there, right? Mythic items. Could you imagine that? Actually, everybody would probably be running that, hoping for master chests.
Oh Lord.
That would save you a
I'm
lot
not
of
even
time.
gonna say nothing, Grim.
It would save you a lot of time. Make that happen. This needs to be a thing. Yeah, then Dan wouldn't have to be running the green CP and out there fishing for 2 hours hoping for a lead.
I have to say though, with that node on there, I was fishing for 10 minutes and I got both leads.
Holy cow.
I don't know what the boost is, but it was godly. I was like, oh my goodness, my RNG normally sucks. And this was I was very, very surprised, almost fell off the chair type thing.
So can
Yeah.
you read that fishing node real quick? Do you know what it exactly says?
I can pull it up. I don't have it to hand. So do you want me to pull it up quickly?
Yeah. Veronica's off today, so I can't ask her.
Veronica's our assistant.
It's okay. It says increase your chance of catching higher quality fish. It says by 10%. Added
So
to the champion bar. I don't think the 10% though is actually listed in the UI, but it says it on the website.
so that specifically says higher quality fish. I
Yeah.
don't think that would affect your leads though.
I didn't think it did, but I tried it in one spot without it, and I was there because I was trying to get a different item a while back, and then I added it on, and literally one area I was there for like half an hour, put on the thing, and I got it within like 5 minutes. It was like, okay, this is quite a big difference, and it could just be pure RNG, but it felt quite considerable as a boost. And then when I went to get the second one, I got it within 5 minutes again. So I was like, that's just too coincidental to stop this node, and then I got the first lead in 5 minutes, go to the next spot and get the next one in 5 minutes. It just felt too. It wasn't really what you'd expect. If that makes
Too
sense.
coincidental. Yeah.
I-
It took me a long time to get those.
I mean, if it happened like 10 times in a row, then I think I'd say, okay, it's definitely the thing. But Grim, didn't you say you got the Thracian one in like one shot, and some guy
Yeah.
was fishing for like 3 hours, and then he
Ye-
was like, well, all right, you were like, see you, man. Sorry.
Yeah. So I went with Papa, and we were both fishing for the same lead. It might have been the Thracians one. It requires two of them, or two of the leads are by fishing, I think. And yeah, the very first spot we ran up to, I got the lead on the very first spot, and then I didn't get the other one for like 4 hours or something like that, and then made up for getting the other one on the first try. So
I
Yeah,
would.
unified. I was gonna say if you do it like 8 more times and you got it within like 5-10 minutes, then yeah, I think that's a winner right there
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
node.
I'm gonna
I'd
test
say
it.
my friend Manti, he was after the item as well, and he slotted the node, and he messaged me 2 hours later, not having a single lead with the picture of the item, like built. So I was like, okay, that's really 2 hours to get the whole strangler item built from start to finish was ridiculous. So I don't know whether it does, but I need to test that. I'm not going to though because it's painful.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like fishing?
Uh,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know who thought that was a good idea to have 2 fishing leads in one item.
Right.
It's just, yeah.
So, how long have you been playing ESO? What's your ESO background?
Yes, my ESO background's like a lot of people. I played during the beta, and I really liked the game. I then obviously was at university at this time, so had to sell a PC, and I didn't like how the game was changing because it was very much you had to pay to play at that point, so it wasn't free to play with ESO Plus. If you wanted it, you had to pay all the time, and so I didn't play it for about a year or so. Then I played on Xbox for 3 years roughly, got to about 1,000 CP with like loads of characters, and then I moved into on the laptop, so I do it on the PC following an accident I had on a bike, and that's when I started the channel as well. So, kind of been on different platforms on and off. If that makes sense.
Did you notice a difference or were you paying attention to these type of things? I guess when you were on console versus PC, but did you notice a difference in the way people build on console versus PC?
I would say yes. Having played on console, particularly in PvE, people have the same gear and stuff, but they seem to be more cautious. So, like, they build more cautiously in PvE, and that did translate to PvP because there was lag, and there wasn't add-ons and stuff to kind of tell you when to block or when to roll. And I play on PC, and I've seen those add-ons. So, I think a lot of people kind of had to learn to be more cautious because they didn't have that information coming in from add-ons all the time. And I think as a result, you just found quite tanky people initially, but then it was also high damage and high speed. So it was that kind of you've had really tank with no damage or really high speed, whereas PC it's just all max health. Like that was the real thing that really shocked me was people actually put attribute points into health, which on console, I never did that for 3 and a bit years. Like as a damage dealer, I'd never slot any points in health because it was a wasted damage stat. So that was a real change.
Yeah. I think Is There No One Else brought that up to me first, because I had some people that were commenting like, hey, this build isn't viable on console. And, and then I looked at that comment and then Is There No One Else? And we were talking about that, but I never thought about that. Yeah, it might not be viable on console, but on PC, it's the thing. So real interesting.
I think it also depends on the population as well. That on PC things kind of are somewhat ahead because they have access to the PTS and they get the patch a week or two early. So you find that for the first kind of weeks on console, people are looking on YouTube for builds and stuff. They're just playing around with it, and so the build could work if you copy a PC build early on. But then when the meta shifts on console 2 or 3 weeks later, it's then not viable anymore, and that happened quite often. I ran one of Christopher ESO's builds a while back, and that was for about 2-3 years ago, and it worked for the first 2 weeks, and then everybody else caught up with what the meta was, and then it stopped working. So
yeah, everybody started counter building it, or everybody was just running it, and then it didn't feel as impressive.
yeah, I think it was like everybody started running it, and I think Eternal Vigor, for example, is a great sort of set to bring up in that loads of builds came out very early with it. But if you couldn't get it early on because it was in high demand, those people who had it felt like gods. Then when everybody else had it, it was fine. And similar with Crimson. Crimson was really OP, and it is still OP. And the people who had it for the first 2 or 3 weeks, when not everybody ran it just yet, like just then, were like absolutely gods, just murdering Zergs. But when the Zerg started using it, the set, although it's very good, was not as effective because everybody else had it.
Right.
So, do you think? Because I know we spoke about it a lot, but given that example you just did, you think it should still be nerfed or
As in
adjusted in some way?
the procs or those sets specifically?
Not Eternal Vigor. I think the Eternal Vigor is fine, but just Crimson.
Oh, Crimson's busted as hell. Like it's so busted.
But if everybody's using it, then what does it matter?
Well,
I think the issue is it's the automation of it, and it's one of those sets that there's no real punishment for using it. And I know people say, well, there's counterplay, you can block it, you can get out of the way. But the reality is, it's hitting people for 4,000 to 12,000 health every 8 seconds. And if there's lots of people on you, it will heal you 20k plus health. And when you see sorcerers, like Magicka sorcerers, run it and will streak into a group of ads in the Imperial City just to get that full health heal from it, you know there's a problem.
Yeah, and I'm not even worried about the heal that comes from it. Just put yourself in a solo PvPer perspective. Say you're down there in the sewers, Icy, and you're running around, and you see a group of 5 people wearing Crimson. It's not even... If they weren't wearing Crimson, you could jump on them, and the fight might go whatever way. Like, you might be able to burst somebody, then on to the next, and on to the next, but knowing that they're all wearing Crimson, they're going to be, just their armor sets are going to be doing free damage to you. And so now you got 5 people times 4k damage a piece, right? Every 8 seconds. That's a lot of pressure.
So, go ahead, finish it.
I'm not worried about the heal that's coming in from it. I'm worried about the amount of free pressure that they're going to apply to me on top of their regular rotation. So
what about if there was never damage on Crimson and it was strictly, it would still do the same animation and everything, but it just sapped health from, multiple targets instead?
I think sets like that, if it worked like that, that'd be much more balanced. I think the issue is kind of what Grim pointed out, is it does damage, but it also heals you. So it has like 2 really strong effects in one thing. I think the heal on it is very strong anyway, regardless. But I think, as Grim said, the damage is a real issue. In isolation against one person, it's not bad, but it's when it's stacked by 5, 6, 7 people, And then the fact that you can't burst them down because Crimson will go off and save their lives, like Earthcore does, for example, is quite frustrating. Like, it's those do not die builds. So I think your thing would help with it because it would stop the damage as well, which is another issue in itself.
Yeah, I like that. Or if it applied minor health steal or something to targets or something like that. Could you imagine if if they got rid of the damage and they got rid of the heal and the AoE just applied minor health steal to any targets that it hit? So you still required to do damage to them to get health back.
I mean, that would kind of blow.
it would
You might as
definitely
well.
flip the set, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I
but I
think-
mean, you might as well just throw in leeching vines, from
Yeah.
the warden, the vine morph, the one that if you get hit by somebody, then it afflicts them with minor lifesteal.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
if
everybody's
they made
working
it,
for you.
oh sorry. I was gonna say if they made it where it was stationary, so when it procs, it's on the ground in an area, and you have to be in it to get the heal. That would be a lot more balanced. Like, there's a set called, I forget its name now, but Leech and Plate has a similar one, and there's another set that has weapon damage on the hill. I forget its name. It's a medium armor set though, but a similar sort of thing. It has like a beam of light that you have to pick up an orb in order to get the buff. Essence Thief, that's it. Sorry, similar to Essence Thief. If it worked like that, where it procced, but you have to go pick it up, then there is counterplay. But currently it procs and you can just run around the corner whilst it's charging and then run back around and unleash the damage and the heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think leeching plate isn't that just it kind of just drops a puddle right there, but you could move out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas this
Yeah.
one, you can't move out of it because you're trying to kill the person who's running away. And so but when you get near them, it heals them. So you're okay. And it damages you. So it's just really annoying to fight against.
Yeah. I remember I did a battleground. This was pre Flames of Ambition, and we ran into 4 werewolves in a battleground in a pre-made, and they were all wearing crimson, and it was just the most excruciating thing. You could not fight. At the time, it was hard enough to kill one werewolf by itself, let alone kill 4 of them, and they were all wearing crimson, getting free damage and free heals. It was just the stupidest thing ever, and I bet they were having the best, the greatest time of their life.
Dude,
Yeah.
we should do that, man. Oh my
It is so
god.
busted.
Yeah, they were unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable. It was crazy. So
Because I know we were running Pet Sorks last week, and I think we're going to do Nightblades tonight. Dude, we should, and I think probably either next week we'll do Crimson Knight or Werewolf or something like that, but we should just combine them both. Werewolves and Crimson.
Werewolves and Crimson. No, it was such a broken build. Like Werewolf, Crimson, and Alessian. That's what people ran.
yeah.
They literally had like 5,000-6,000 health regen plus an auto heal with Crimson doing damage. So you couldn't kill one of them, but when there's 2 of them on you, they would kill you because there's 2 of them. Like they might hit you for little bits, but just enough people will kill you.
Yeah. Another build we should do. Dan has a really good perma cloak, or not perma cloak, perma mist build. And we should all do mist form and just lull around.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, it is so broken. I called it Misty, and it uses the Black Rose Destro staff, the Vate Destro staff, and Savara scales. So whilst you're in mist form, all the stuff procs automatically, basically, and you heal with the blood mist morph. So people can't kill you, and you just proc them to death. It is so busted in BGs.
Yeah, we're gonna get some hate messages on this. Like, why are you guys talking about the most broken crap and doing it in battlegrounds?
Because it's fun when you do it in a group with your friends.
You don't want to face that stuff. Just go make sure you're queuing solo, like we talked about earlier.
I think they're touching upon the broken things. Zos is very clear with what they're intending, with the buff and the proc sets, giving people more choices and stuff. And people moaned about the imbalance of it on the forums heavily. Like, I saw so many posts. Is there no one else made like countless videos? But unless people abuse it and make builds that are just really out there and really just broken, Zos is going to leave it as it is. So that's why that mist thing exists, because it was an attempt to try and highlight an issue in the game. And I think if you look at Mistform, that did get nerfed because of the health regen doesn't work anymore. Before you could have like 6k health regen in Mistform, which was really, really broke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a 10k health recovery build that I did. It's the third build in my Stamina Necromancer. It's called the Anthrus 3.0, but 10k health recovery is really, really silly.
It's so busted.
Yeah. So when you were bouncing around from console to PC, at what point did you start doing your content, and what was that thought process like? Was there just this moment where you're like, hey, you know what? Hey, I'm Dan. I'm gonna start doing content for ESO.
I think a lot of it is kind of things in life fell into place in the sense that I had more time because I was off work due to an accident, which obviously I recovered from that, so that's great. But it's also the fact that with having more spare time and just wanting to help people, because on Xbox I used to make the builds and then share them with my friends. They go, "Oh Dan, what would you use for a Templar or for a Nightblade?" And I'd make something up for them. So my USP build editor has like 200 links or something stupid over the 3 or 4 years I've been playing. And I thought, can't I just take that kind of desire to help people instead of just telling them it, just make a video and show them how to do it? And I think a lot of it came from that it was the desire to help people, show them what I do, and I enjoy it. I enjoy playing the game. So it just kind of all fell into place, I think, really.
Okay. And do you handle, for your content creation, do you handle all of the creative process, like from thumbnails to editing to everything?
Yeah, it takes so much time. But yes, is the answer to that. It's the editing, the ideas, the recording, the gameplay, the voiceover for it, if there is one. Yeah, all of it. So yeah, it's what it's like yourself.
Yeah. What's the process look like for you? Do you have things planned out like a month in advance? Do you kind of fly by the seat of your pants? Like, what's your, operating procedure, I guess, for how you approach it?
I think there's no right or wrong way to do it, in all honesty. But for me, I kind of do a bit of both, where it's kind of I have ideas of what I want to make. So okay, I want to try this, I want to try that. But then I'm also reactive to if a PTS cycle's coming up, let's do a patch note review. Let's look at this, let's look at that. If something changes on the forum where it's an announcement, like the CP change, let's make a video on that. So I have like content planned, but it's also just being flexible enough to move it around if you need to touch on something that's more important at that time. That's how I do it.
Yeah. Did you follow any content creators, like, at any point? Do you currently, or like when you were playing the game, whose videos were you watching to see what else was out there?
I think when I was on Xbox, I watched Christopher ESO. I really liked his build. I liked what he did about a year or 2 years ago, where it was very wacky and out there. I looked at Zidane. So Zidane is really, really good. He's one of the better Magical Nightblades I've seen. And if I'm ever like, oh, what would I use on that? I'd go and ask him because his Nightblades are great. And I also looked at Is There No One Else? But I looked at him more since I started PC. So I got invited to his Discord. And yeah, so he's the one I kind of keep up to date with mainly, and Zidane, because I speak to those people. But it's trying to watch content and make content's a difficult balance, I think.
Yeah. Something I noticed too is, and maybe this is only for me, but like when I'm doing my builds and stuff like that, I don't necessarily want to reach out and look at different content creators and see what builds they're running, because I feel like that kind of affects my thought process and how I'm putting builds together, the why. I start seeing what they're doing and start thinking about it, and it kind of affects that a little bit. But then there's also the flip side of it is like the really wacky stuff you were talking about with Christopher. I need to know, like, what the heck is he running? That's crazy. Or how the heck do you do infinite mist form? And oh wait, we're killing people with it. Like, that's freaking funny. And so, yeah, build diversity is the thing that intrigues me the most. But if it's anything outside of that, like I want to try and keep my blinders on and just focus on what works for me and my play style, and then try and help people with that. So
Yeah, I think I'm 100%, like 100% behind that. that you have to find what works for you. And I have the same kind of process that I have an idea. So, for example, you probably heard the game The Floor is Lava. Being a teacher, kids in school play it all the time. It's really annoying, but that's what they like to play. And I have an idea like that and go, how can I make that work in the game? How can I make a Mistform build do damage? How can I make a build where I can spam skills for free? And so I have just a really stupid idea, and then I try to make it happen, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
sometimes, if it doesn't work, you go, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. What are people actually doing? So that's kind of when you then go back and go, yeah, this isn't working.
Yeah, I love that.
I will say, as an adult, playing the is the floor lava is still a lot of fun. But I was gonna say that so it's kind of interesting because I've heard a bunch of other content creators, even outside of ESO, say that they tend not to watch other people's content because they do want to maintain their own, I guess, individualistic freedom in a way, so that it doesn't kind of mar what they're trying to produce, and they can, kind of still have like their own unique type of thing. But then I kind of think, I know Bruce Lee used to talk about it a lot, where you learn how other people do things and then just take the best out of that and then kind of incorporate that into your own thing. So then you have the best of what. So I'll take something from what Grimm's got, I'll take something from what Unified's got, I'll take something from this, whatever, and then I kind of make my own thing with bits and pieces of what other people have put together. So I feel like it's kind of interesting, if you do either one of those approaches.
I think the big thing, like being a teacher, it obviously helps, but the first way people learn is just by copying. That is first and foremost. And if you're somebody who struggles with what do I use on my class, just copy somebody's build and then tweak it. That is the best thing to do. As a content creator, you can do the same kind of thing when you start out. And I think, when I first started, I looked at Chris for ESO, I looked at other creators, but now that I've kind of got, this is what I do, this is how I do it, you then have that integrity and that I do it my way and I don't look at other people when I do it my way. So I think it's like you almost evolve to that point.
Yeah, because I know when I started, I know I was using a lot of Grimm's builds when he was helping me out and stuff, and then I slowly, came into my own thing where now I just make my own support builds and stuff like that. So yeah. I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, I like that problem solving too that you're talking about. You're like, how do I make a infinite Mistform build that also does damage and kills people? And then you're like, okay, let's go to work. And I do that same process with my thematic builds. Like if I were going to make Thanos in ESO, what class would he be? What race would he be? What abilities would he use? What's thematic? Like not necessarily what's meta, what's functional, what's good, but how would he do it? And then I need to put it all together and then make it good in PvP, competitive in PvP. And so that's how I approach the thematic builds. Is it's not always using the best abilities or the best gear. It's using exactly what Thanos would do, and then me trying to figure out how to make it successful. It's a lot of fun.
I think I absolutely love that kind of approach because I think loads of people overlook the fact that this is a game. Like it should be fun, and killing people is great. But if you're playing a class that you just like to play or a thematic build, if it's the best, great. If it's not the best, who cares? As long as you're enjoying it. And I think so many people overlook that fact.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I made not too long ago. I made Deadpool, and he's a Nightblade, obviously. But just to start the BGs, he's what's the sit?
I think
it's sit 3.
Sit 3, where he kind of sits to the side, like seductive, like and so I move off to the side at the beginning of the BGs. This is how much of a nerd I am. But I move off to the side so everybody can see me, and then they're like, "Holy crap, that guy looks like Deadpool!" And then in party chat, I'm like, "Time to make the chimichangas," and my guy's name is Deadpool. But doing stuff like that is fun and funny, and if I go out in the BG and go 0-10 or whatever, it's whatever. But that's been a lot of fun, is doing stuff like that.
And I like the creativity with your thematic builds, Grim, because it's usually so off the meta where, when you're playing the Hulk, who in their right mind would ever use Stone Fist as a spammable? But hey, you're making it kind of viable, and people are interested now.
Yeah, what are you talking about, man? Like Stone Fist is it's the move. Nobody knows.
Hey, I'm all down for it, man. You got to convince Papa. He doesn't. I'm not gonna say too much.
Yeah, Stone Fist. You know the weird thing, we were talking on the last episode about this. And the weird thing about Stone Fist is the first time you activate it, it does an AoE around you, which is really cool. And you stomp your foot, so it's very Hulk-ish, stomp your foot, AoE, Hulk smash. But then the next 3 times that you hit the button, you're throwing or lobbing a rock, and it is at ranged. Well, if you're using a two-hander, it's very hard to light attack or medium attack weave or heavy attack weave to get stamina back. So you're just expending resources, expend. So that play style is very easy to run yourself out of resources. But I'm going to Hulk Smash is actually one of the thematic builds that's next up, and we'll bring it back because it's kind of like a hybrid, and hybrids have their place in the sun right now. We can make hybrids viable. So, how many hybrids do you have, Dan?
I've dabbled with hybrids before, so I've used hybrids in and out. I think, obviously, with what I do, I like to obviously try and min-max things. That's kind of I'm quite a numbery person, so I wouldn't say I have many real dedicated hybrids, but I have used wardens before in the past for hybrids. They've one of the best kind of classes for it, to be honest. So at present, nothing public yet, but I do dabble around with a warden now and again with 2H. So I used to use a 2H magical warden with onslaught, which was really fun to play. So I might bring that back at some point. I just haven't made a video on it yet. So
yeah, and being a fan of Christopher ESO, you got to be kind of a fan of hybrids or curious about hybrids, because that was kind of his thing, his differentiating value proposition. He was really good with hybrids when they weren't even really kind of a thing. So,
oh yeah, I think 100%. I think the whole flexibility to just slot what you want, whether it's magic or stamina, that freedom is really, really welcomed. A lot of builds are very restrictive in that you have to slot surprise attack if you're a Nightblade, and that's what you do. Whereas you can choose to slot anything, whether it's class skill, bow skill, staff skill, and that's really, really refreshing as a hybrid. So yeah, I see why people like them.
Yeah. So when you came over to PC, that's when you started doing the content, and you started making content for ESO. Have you made content for any other games?
I've dabbled with some other games. So I've made some stuff for things like Scrap Mechanic. I've done things like Minecraft and stuff now and again, but just exploring sort of how you'd do it almost. So nothing really long term, just like a video here or there to just play around with that style, just to go, what would that video look like, and how could I use that to then help with ESO, for example? So I've done kind of bits here or there, but predominantly ESO currently.
Okay.
Can you describe Scrap Mechanic? I don't think I've ever heard of that game.
So Scrap Mechanic is a survival engineering game, and the idea is that you have to try and survive against robots, and you basically build vehicles which do stuff. So you mine resources, you build bases, and each night your base gets attacked by robots if you have farms and stuff. So it's quite a casual game. It's not anything to take really seriously. So if you want to sort of chill for half an hour or so, it's quite an easy game to get into.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for startup content creators? If you had to list the 3 biggest lessons that you've learned along the way, what would those lessons be?
I think the first one, and it sounds really daft, is just do it. Like, a lot of people, including myself, I was like, oh, don't I, will I be okay at doing this? And taking that kind of plunge to just set up a channel, make a video. Your first video is going to be terrible. My first video is on the channel. Like, if you want to see how bad it is, it's cringeworthy. But I think that's the first thing, is just start it, do it. Once you've done that, is really kind of play around with styles and formats. Look at other creators, look at what they're doing. What do you like? What don't you like? What could you do? Maybe what could you do better, perhaps? And really find out where's your niche. Like, that's really important. People don't want to see the same thing again and again. What can you offer that's different to somebody else and what's out there already? And then the last thing, which this is a thing that elevated my channel. So I was at about 800 subscribers, and then I looked into search engine optimization, which is all about how do you get your video to the right person. And having done that, I grew my channel from just under 1,000 to 10,000 in just over a year. So those are the three things. Just get started. Then look at what other people are doing. How could you do that better? What could you do in your own style? And look at how do you optimize your videos so they go to the right people.
I love it. Those would be my top three too. And you've actually helped me. You're like full of knowledge. That's got to be from being a teacher, but then, well, your transfer of knowledge is very good. That's what it is because you're a teacher, you understand how to transfer that knowledge. But being very knowledgeable, I could tell that you did a lot of homework on SEO, the search engine optimization, and we had this scheduled for a while to have you on the podcast, but you and I have been chatting on and off pretty regularly, and you've helped me with my thumbnails. You've helped me with so many different things. So I wanted to thank you for that on air.
It's absolutely fun. Like, I do this as a hobby. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping the community. I've helped yourself. I've helped other creators, PvE, PvP ones, because, I like to help people, and really, this is a community. I'm not in it for myself. I'm in it for the community. And if people make better content and that helps the community as a whole, then that's great. And that's what I'm all about.
Yeah. Yeah. Search engine optimization and the thumbnails was really, really informative. Do you have, let's talk about your PvP experience. I see you testing builds and kind of showing off your builds or exploiting really, really powerful builds in battlegrounds. But let's talk about your PvP experience, and when did you start PvP in ESO?
So I think, like a lot of people, I'm quite competitive in nature. So PvP was quite a interesting thing to look into early on. So I think I started PvP in the Elder Scrolls Online around 300 CP, and at that point the cap was 600 CP. So I was about halfway, and there was a difference in CP for sure. And I got absolutely destroyed. Like, I got absolutely destroyed. You make all the rookie mistakes of going in too sort of heavy-handed, not line of sighting properly, not using potions. That's a big learning curve that actually they really, really help. Like, it's really bad mistakes. But I learned from that. And I think that's the biggest thing, is go in, try something out, learn from it. And once I kind of got used to kind of getting killed a lot, which really annoyed me, I then went to dueling, and I spent a lot of time dueling friends, people who were better than me, getting absolutely just annihilated by them. But the more I did that, it then got to a point where I wasn't dying anymore and they couldn't kill me. And then I learned how to then kill them. And it was that kind of process that then gave me the confidence to then go into Cyrodiil by myself, solo, 1vx, all that stuff, which I think is obviously, that's what I like to do. As we've kind of been on PC now, I've moved more towards Battlegrounds because, unfortunately, performance on PC is pretty lackluster. So that's much more stable to record like content for in Battlegrounds than, say, in Cyrodiil, because it's just really laggy. So that's kind of where I am currently with content and PvP and stuff.
Yeah. We had Malcolm on the, do you know Malcolm? He's a really, really good sorcerer.
Yeah, he's next level.
Yeah, next level. He does content on YouTube as well, but we had Malcolm on, and I said, hey, so tell me about your Cyrodiil experiences. And he goes, well, I go to my favorite rock in Cyrodiil, and then I kind of wait for groups to pass by, and then I try and bait them over to my favorite rock so I can 1vx them. do you have a favorite rock in Cyrodiil that you do that on?
I do have favorite spots. I really like there's a little, it's like a well, I think it's alien well between, I think it's Nickel and I think it's Robe, the bottom left home keep. mid AD, I think is Robeck. And I like round there because you've got obviously the hills, you've got that really steep hill by Nickel. So you can kind of like line of sight and change the angles there really easily, which is really, really fun. And by Bleakers. Bleakers is a great place to fight by.
Yeah. That's funny that, he's like, and to me, it sounded a lot like fishing. You go to your favorite fishing hole and then you just kind of stand there and hope to catch something, hope to catch a group fishing.
And it really is. I think as well, like, I think Malcolm, I've bumped into Malcolm because he plays on the EU as well. And it's always a stalemate. But the big thing is when you are kind of trying to bait people out, you don't know who you're going to bait. Sometimes you bait a tiny little fish that's easy to kill. Sometimes you bait this like giant shark that you think, oh my goodness, what have I done? So it can go one of two ways, which is quite funny. And, so it's always good fun.
Yeah. Do you spend much time going down to Imperial City, or is it just BGs and Cyrodiil?
I go into IC. I like IC a lot. I like using my Warden in there quite a lot and my Nightblade. I find Nightblades are great just to steal AP and Telvar. So getting AP is easy, but getting Telvar is really easy on a Nightblade, which you do feel quite dirty for doing it. Like you just see somebody just like, yep, I'll take that Telvar, thank you. But
I have an EU account. I noticed that the EU Imperial City is way more active than it is over on NA. Way more active.
Yeah, 100%. You can go in there. You can always find there's a group typically running around the top. You can find there's people in the home bases just farming down there, and you normally find a couple groups of like just small scale people just kind of going around. So there's always fights in there, which is great. And I think IC is probably one of my favorite places to PvP because you do have the balance of PvP and PvE that kind of is interwoven. And you also make money because Telvar you can sell for gold by buying alchemy stuff. So it kind of converts, which is great.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest hang up over on the NA server? Why, or in general, like so many people prefer Cyrodiil over to Imperial City? Is it the PvE injection? Like there's PvE injected into their PvP and they don't like that? What's the hang up?
I think it comes down to, I think just Telvar, in all honesty. People don't like having stuff taken away from them. And from speaking to people in the EU, the ones who don't go into Imperial Cities because of that, they go, well, I'm going to get ganked. I'm going to lose all my Telvar. What's the point? And I think that can be quite a strong motivator for a lot of people. So maybe it's just that you have more people with that mindset, perhaps. And I think as well, you always have different metas. So if you've got quite a tanky meta and you're not going to kill anybody in there, then why would you go there if it's just going to be a stalemate time and time again? So I think it's quite meta-specific and also people's mindsets.
Yeah, Icy has a perfect mindset for Imperial City. His mindset is it isn't your Telvar until you bank it. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, don't feel bad if they're just holding on to your Telvar.
Do feel bad.
Yeah. That was my initial introduction to PvP. I'm the dude. I didn't know anything about PvP really. I knew that, I'm fighting this guy, but I didn't know anything about anything. And I'm down in Imperial City farming, just killing mobs, and I keep seeing this dude run by, and I had seen him kill like 5-10 people by himself before. I was like, that's a demigod right there, that guy running by. And one of the times he stopped and he was like, what are you doing? He messages me, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm farming Telvar. He's like, you do realize there's easier ways to farm Telvar, right? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, follow me. And like within the next 30 minutes or 15 minutes, I had 20k Telvar. Like we just went in and just completely wiped a AD group and then go wipe a DC group. I say we,
he did.
He did. Yeah. I fought one person the whole time while he killed the rest. But and yeah, to come back with 20k in that amount of time, and I was just like, holy crap. And he's like, yeah, man, they're out there collecting your Telvar, they just don't know it, and you got to go collect. I was like, sounds good to me, teach me. Yeah, that's how I got into it. So advice for new PvPers, you had already talked about line of sight and stuff like that. What other tips do you have? And I think you got a video coming up talking about this, don't you?
Yeah, I'll kind of touch briefly upon it, but as you said, there is a video on the way. So obviously, if you are subscribed to the channel, you'll see it in a couple of days. But the big thing really is line of sight have actually a competitive skill bar. Like there's certain skills that you just need to do well in PvP. Like if you don't have a heal, you're gonna die. It sounds really stupid, I know, but the amount of people you see in battlegrounds, Cyrodiil that just don't heal themselves. So you're like, you do realize you're low health. Like I can light attack you to death right now. And I have like this. It sounds embarrassing. I put up some videos where I've bashed people to death on a Magicka character. I'm like, I should not be able to do this. And when I say bashed them to death, they have like 5,000 health at this point. I bash them from 5,000 to 0, doing like 100 damage each time because they don't heal themselves. So I'm like, yeah. So have a skill bar that is really competitive. You need a spammable, you need a stun, you need some kind of delayed burst skill. So I've got a big list that's in the video. There's about 8 or 9 skills you need. Line of sight is a given. So for me, line of sight is really about turning what is a very iffy situation into a more advantageous one. So if you have, say, 8 people on you, if 8 people light attack you and do 1,000 damage each, that's 8,000 damage instantly. But if you move around a rock and now only 3 of them can hit you, you're now taking 3,000 damage. That's significantly better. And that's what that is. It's all about turning what is a really awkward situation to something a bit more sort of in your favor. And the one thing which I think a lot of PvE players get caught out on this a lot, and it's that DPS race. In PvE, you are taught time and time again to light attack weave, keep your dots up, keep your buffs on. You never taught to heal yourself or to block because that's what the healer does. The tank keeps hold of the mob for you. So you have to do all that yourself. And when you go to put down your AoE, your Wall of Frost, or your arrow barrage, for example, and you go, holy hell, he's moved out of the way. What am I going to do? Like, and it's I know it sounds really daft, but people do that. And going with kind of just DPS, PvP is not about that. So the biggest thing I'd say is build into burst and combos. If somebody can heal themselves, that's great. But if you give no time to heal themselves, you're going to get the kill. And damage over time, just spamming skills is not going to kill them. If you land 3 or 4 skills at once, though, you can burst them and one-shot them pretty much, which every class can do in some capacity. Templar's got Purify and Light with the jabs. Warden's got the Beetles and the Dizzying Swing or Clench and stuff. Sorcerers have Haunting Curse. Like every class has some way of doing this. And I think that was the big one for me is land skills together to get much more success than just spam skills like a lemon. It's just not going to work. But as I said, there's a lot more in the video that I've made, which will be out in a week or so, probably next Wednesday.
Yeah. What are your, as a side note, I guess, what are your 3 most broken builds that you have? Like if we were going to steer people towards them and say, hey, you want to play something broken? Here it is. What are those?
If you ask me this question, not last patch, but the patch before, the list is quite short. But if you ask me as of this patch, the list is quite long because I tried to make broken builds on purpose to showcase the issues with spells. So probably the most broken one is the heavy attack hero. The heavy attack hero, obviously the acronym is HA, H-A-A. It's just really, really broke because you're landing 15 to 25,000 heavy attacks at range. Like they don't need to be on wall of elements or anything. You literally buff up and just heavy attack and they die. And you have about 35, 40k health. So you're really hard to kill. That's really, really busted. You also got the Mistform thing, which are called Misty. That's really stupid as well because Mistform's annoying to fight against. And then when someone's procking you to death, that's even worse. The snipers as well, they're pretty like OP, in all honesty. The damage you can get on a sniper is just ridiculous. And I like to min-max them. So I go through, test the race, the Mundus, the glyphs, all different set combinations to find out what is the best combo you can get to just nuke people. So those would be the top 3, the sniper, heavy attack hero, and Misty. If I could add in kind of an honorable mention, it would be light attack Larry, which I absolutely love. If you don't know what light attack Larry is, it's literally what it says. you do light attacks to kill people, and we use procs to just get free damage to do it. It's really stupid, but really effective. So those would be my builds.
Yeah. So do you think somebody from ZOS is listening right now and they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure that 90% of the complaints in our forums are from your builds?
I do get that put on the comments quite often by people going, like, you're the reason PvP's dying right now, or you should be ashamed. I get those kind of comments, which make me chuckle because, like, there is a bigger picture to this. It's, yes, they're fun. Yes, they're trolly and stupid right now, but my hope is that they do fix them going forward. As with whether ZOS sees the videos or not, I have had them, they've published some of my videos in the news articles before. So like my race guide, for example, has been published by them. So I don't know if they see them all the time or not, but I think they know my name at least, but that's about it. I don't think they'll actually actively watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that that's important. This was a couple episodes back with Is There No One Else? And I said, man, wouldn't it be great to have a direct line to someone, a dev or whoever? And for some of the content creators that aren't trying to steer, we're not trying to steer or buff up our main class, right? We're not trying to steer people towards classes that are broken or things like that. But what if we had a direct line to someone at ZOS, and maybe we only make that phone call once or twice a year, but your one phone call this year would be to whoever this person is, and you'd say, hey, I've got 3 builds for you that need adjusting, please. And one of them's Misty, another one is light attack Larry, and the other one's the heavy attack Hero. They need adjusting, and here's why. I plead my case in the videos, and they actually review it and do something about it. Like, there's an email that comes to you and they say, hey, thanks for putting this together and bringing it to our attention. It helps us immensely, the fact that you made a video on it, so we can see exactly how they're overperforming, and we can put together a perfect idea on how to adjust them. Don't you think that needs to be like a thing where you have contact to someone?
I think whether it's myself or another creator, I think that ZOS needs feedback. I think that's first and foremost. I would just obviously mention that they do have the class rep program. I think that it probably sounds harsh, but it feels very tokenistic currently. I think they should expand that and really look at utilizing that much more, because there have been times where class reps have gone, look, this is going to be an issue if you don't fix it. And then it's mentioned in PTS, mentioned again in PTS by hundreds of people on the forums. And then it hits the live server and you go, okay, no, we told them about this. So I think if they could speak to some content creators, whether it's myself or other people, I think that just to get a gauge on what is PvP like, how does it feel on platforms from Xbox to PC to PlayStation, I think that's always a useful thing to have. More info is better. But the issue, as you said, is a lot of people are class specific. They want buffs to their class. And you see it on the forums all the time where, Nightblades go, oh my goodness, they're changing this. Or Sorks go, oh, now they're changing this. Where Sorcerers currently are really, really strong. So I think it's a really delicate line to walk. It'd be good if they could, but I can see it being quite problematic from their end as well.
Yeah.
Could you explain the class rep program, and can anyone be in the class rep program?
So the class rep program, they have an article on the forums, but the kind of general gist is people would apply to who had experience of their class, and then they have, I think it's quarterly or is it twice a year meetings with ZOS. During this, these are like Skype or Discord meetings, and ZOS will share some information with them, or ask them to do a questionnaire of some form. They will feedback what people think. The idea is that the class rep should be collecting information and then sort of passing it on. So it's almost like a school counselor. Like if you're at school, you had your school council person who you'd go and they would ask the question to the class would give them the answer, they tell it to the school council. It's that kind of process from what I understand. But they do ignore a lot of it from what I have also heard. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I wonder how much of it is ignoring it versus how much of it is this is such a big animal. There's so many moving parts, and maybe a PTS that's released a month in advance or whatever isn't enough time for them. If something's caught during the PTS, there really isn't enough time to pivot or to make the changes, and they have to just schedule it. But then I would feel like, well, at least acknowledge, at least acknowledge that message received, um, build reviewed, problems found, and we've got it scheduled for first quarter of whatever, next year.
I think the thing, you kind of hit the nail on the head is that the communication needs to be better. I think they do a great job with the chapters and the stuff each year. They release a lot of material, but there's obviously a lot of internal workings for them trying to balance the game, PvP, PvE, and all that stuff. With also what's the long-term vision of the game, how should combat look, and I think they're always striving towards those goals, but they don't always communicate them clearly to the players. So then, as a player, you're going, but that makes no sense. So an example is they asked the community reps a while back about Stamina Sorcerer and Magicka Sorcerer having sustain issues in PvE, going, well, why aren't they using Dark Deal? And they were told, well, because Dark Deal has a cast time, so people don't use it in PvE because it's got a cast time. You lose DPS. So I think they do listen to what people say, but it also needs to kind of align with their agenda. And I don't think they've clearly said what their agenda is. Like, what should the game be in a year's time? What should it look like in 2 years' time? Or whatever that grand plan is. Nobody really knows what it is unless you work at ZOS.
Yeah, that I wish we had a direct line to whoever, and maybe it be a phone. It's a phone line that we only use once a year, but we could help them solve serious problems of, broken things so they have less complaints in the forums. Otherwise we have to go the other route, and the other route is doing the videos like you do that expose or show this build in all its glory and how unbalanced it is, and then there's however many people running that build now, and now there's people flooding into the forums complaining about it, and now it gets put on the docket as something that needs to be looked into and proposed fixes, when if there would have been some people that when they say, hey, this needs to be looked at, it's in fact looked at, and a course of actions put together. So I think I think it needs to be a content creator. I told Is There No One Else that he doesn't have a favorite class per se or a favorite play style. He just wants to see the game balanced. Same with you. I feel like you just want to see the game balanced. And so when you find these things that are not balanced, you want to be able to have that. You should be able to have that phone call, that phone that you could pick up and call the president and say, we've got a problem.
I think it needs it. I think so. Whether it's myself or somebody else, or I think they do need to have just a gauge of what people are doing to break stuff. Like asking a class main is not a good way of doing it because people are just biased to their class. So I think Is There No One Else, as you said, he plays all sorts of classes like me, and I think that gives you the real kind of this is really strong or this is clearly weak. So like Magicka DK, not in a great spot this patch. It's not terrible, but no procs means it's not as good as it used to be. So, yeah. But I don't think ZOS know that stuff just yet.
Yeah, a class rep, like you were saying, they're going to plead to the case of their class, but they're only talking about their class. What really needs to happen is talking about how each class compares to one another. Icy brought this up a couple times now, and then we were talking to Papa. We hate when a class is performing and then adjustments or nerfs come to that class, when the reality of it should be the rest of the classes should be brought up to their tier. And we were talking about this with Deltia about sorcerers, and he said, man, sorcerers are really strong. And I said, they are strong, but I don't think that the thing about sorcerers is this, if you want to push really a really good parse, really good PvE numbers with a sorcerer, you can. If you want to be very good at PvP with a sorcerer, single target burst, you can. They're very flexible, and when you focus on what you're trying to do, PvE or PvP, the class can be very successful at both. And so I think that is actually a very good balanced class. It's able to do both and do it well. And so I would like to see both Magicka and Stamina from all the other classes function at that same level as a sorcerer. So that way people can't say, man, sorcerers are so strong and sorcerers are broken. They can say, actually, all the classes are feeling really strong and powerful right now, both in PvE and PvP. So
Yeah, I think what you're saying, I completely get that, and I think it depends on how you define balance, isn't it? You could say that Magic Sorcerer is unbalanced because Streak is a reset button, and if they're used properly, they're unkillable. But then you could say from that, Sorcerer needs nerfing. But you could also say, well, if Sorcerer is that good, other classes clearly need buffing to be just as good. And I think they did that with a lot of the proc sets last patch. If you look at the numbers, all the proc sets have a very similar DPS. Some of them are just, it's all burst, some of it's damage per second over X amount of time. And I think they balanced the proc sets really well. Yes, they're really OP with Malakath. That's the issue in itself. But if you actually compare proc to proc to proc, all of them were useful. You had Svara Scale, Oblivion's Foe, Black Rose, Destro. You had the Vethshan Destro. You had loads of sets that were really useful, like Way of the Fire, because all of them were competitive. The issue is that the classes aren't at that point yet. And I think when we talk about balance, as you say, we need to bring the classes to that level where the class is good, whether it's PvE, PvP, whether it's this set or that set. And I think Is There No One Else did a video about being resistant to the meta when it changes. Like Sorcerer, really good this patch because it's single target and there's no procs. But last patch, when those procs are eating away at the shields, it wasn't great because it's not resistant to that change. So I think it does need looking into 100%.
yeah. We need to find this phone number. We need it would be amazing. I think if there were to be two people, it needs to be a content creator that fills this role, and a content creator that is not a class leader. They're not trying to buff any specific class. They're trying to bring just balance as a whole to the game, and they can play every class, both Magicka and Stamina, and they're playing outside the meta too. If you play those classes and you play them just as the meta, I don't think that gives you a good snapshot of what the class is capable of. Everybody can play the meta. What's the rest of that class's kit? Where is it lacking? Like, this ability is not used at all, almost on anyone's kit. Why is this ability not used, and what could we change it to be more effective? And so I think that's needed. So you guys do a great service for the game. I wish they would utilize you guys better.
Yeah, I think talking about kind of the class kit and stuff, it made me think of a video that I do kind of every patch. I need to do it for this patch, where I kind of rank the classes, but I break it down into, are they good at single target burst or AoE damage or mobility or healing or group utility? And I think looking at a class in that format is really useful because you can go, a Warden is great at all of this stuff, but a Magicka DK has no group utility really, or a Stamina Nightblade has like zero group utility whatsoever. And I think it's a really good way to see what's lacking and what skill could be buffed to give them that edge, because there are skills that are just not used in PvP, period, or PvE in some instances, like Nightblade.
Right. And as a Nightblade, you were talking about not providing any group utility. The same with Warden and the same with Necromancer. When you read some of their abilities or their toolkits, right down at the bottom, there's a little additional, this thing, while slotted, this ability provides an extra 3% healing. Or like, how hard would it be to just add that little section onto the bottom of some Nightblade abilities and just say, while slotted, your group receives 3% more healing, or, you know, that's kind of an easy fix, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think that needs doing. I think when you look at classes in a vacuum, it's fine, but when you look at them together, you realize the issues. And I've mentioned it before. Is there no one else has mentioned it? Like Necromancer has really strong passives as a class, but then every skill is a passive in itself, where it's like 3% damage retaken, 3% healing. It's like crazy that you get passives on passives almost. Whereas the poor Nightblade, the poor Templar doesn't have that on their skills. So it's those things, as you said, could really help bring some of those classes that maybe are underperforming in a patch, just bringing them up a bit. So you don't need to nerf the Sorcerer, you don't need to nerf the Necromancer, that the other ones are just better because they had those little adjustments made.
yeah, raise up the other classes. Don't try and chop down the ones that are functioning effectively right now, right?
Yeah.
So if you had a meta crystal ball, I don't even know what that would look like, but you have a crystal ball and it's the meta crystal ball, and you had to guess what direction PvP as a whole is. By the end of the year, what do you think the game is going to look like in Cyrodiil, in Battlegrounds, and everywhere?
I think, you probably need to speak to ZOS because they have a clear agenda, 100%. But based on the information we have currently and what I've seen, my belief is that proc sets will return. I am under the belief that they will return, but with restrictions added. So maybe things like Bright Throat's Boast, Bone Pirates, like procs that are stat based will be allowed in, but procs that are Zavara Scales, Oblivion's Foe, those kind of sets that are really just free damage and very oppressive, I think they will have some restrictions added to Cyrodiil or to BGs, because the way in which it is been kind of worded implies that. So I think meta-wise, that will open more build diversity. You will see more sort of stat-based builds, I think. You'd have a lot more stat-based builds going forward with very high stats, with little procs, in all honesty. I think that's kind of the mindset they're kind of going to go forward with it. Whether they allow some of the OP procs like the Vate 2H in there, Crimson, I don't think that's going to come back in the same form that it was. So meta-wise, I think it will be very similar to what we have. High health, high armor, until there's like a set, this is what PvP is going to look like. Until that's kind of fixed in stone, people are going to build more bulk and resistance until they get the feel for combat, the feel for how is PvP right now. And at the moment, it's just 2 up and down.
Yeah, I think Icy brought this up. How would you feel about using the Battle Spirit passive, PvP Battle Spirit passive? Like if you hover over that, it'll say whatever the, heals are cut by 50% or whatever. And they removed the additional health in PvP zones because you now have it both in and out of PvP zones. But if you hover over your Battle Spirit passive while you're in a PvP zone, what if they attached just an extra sentence there that said all damaging proc sets all will be cut by 50%? Now that might break, or it doesn't break the procs. It'll allow people build diversity. They can, if you want to run a proc set, run a proc set, but now you have to weigh, is the grape worth the squeeze? Is that damage that's coming, if it's cut in half, whatever the tooltip reads is, and it's cut in half in a PvP environment, is it worth it? And some of the sets won't be worth it, and so wear proc sets, no problem, but you're not going to get the tooltip in a PvP environment that you would in PvP. How do you feel about that, using Battle Spirit passive to control proc set damage?
I think I wouldn't use it to control proc sets. I would rather they made proc sets scale with damage. So the idea is that in order to have a nice proc doing good damage, you need to have actually high weapon damage and stamina. So that kind of eliminates the issue where people go in heavy armor with 5 procs, for example, and have like 45k health, but actually good damage because the procs do the damage. Whereas if you had to invest in the damage to have the procs do the damage, you kind of feel like you're building into it somewhat. I do think, though, they should adjust Battle Spirit and have it affect more things, whether it's affecting, kind of how procs function, whether they add like a proc fatigue, for example. So when in PvP, a proc set has enhanced cooldowns for maybe something like that, so it can't fire as often. Or they have they can't fire concurrently, because that's the issue that with, I think, Is There No One Else made the one butts build, which is really, really stupid, but it's literally light attack poison injection and it procs 3 sets with one action. And he's getting like over 1 million damage every BG because it works that way. One action has 4 or 5 sources of damage. I think they could use Battle Spirit to address that part. The one thing I'd say is kind of off, slight tangent, but still relevant, is when you look at PvE sets, like False God, for example, they have buffs in their like Major Slayer, Minor Slayer. You get bonus damage to trial mobs. You have Major, Minor, Aegis, I think it is, which is take less damage from PvE mobs. I think it will be cool if they added things like that, but for PvP. So like when in a PvP zone, you have 5% more damage to players. Stuff like that would be quite a cool way to add procs back in without them being really OP. So it's that kind of percent boost where it can be slapped onto a PvP set, because you've got all the Cyrodiil sets that aren't really used currently. I think that's how I'd address it.
Yeah. How do you feel about like World of Warcraft has their own PvP gear? What if you were to separate, like right now we have all the Telvar vendors down there, and if you were to look at it, you could see how this stuff applies to PvP, but it could all be just as easily used in PvE as well. What if they had specific gear sets that were put into those vendors and all that current gear was moved elsewhere, but if you want to actually PvP in Imperial City or Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds, you need to purchase PvP gear through Alliance Points or Telvar, and there's different sets available. Would you be for that?
I think you run it's a real catch-22, like with all these things, is that it makes the entry into that mode harder. So if you're somebody who's doing PvE, you want to jump into PvP for the first time, you have to go and buy a specific set for it to be useful. So that could cause issues there. But from a more senior PvP player, somebody who's played PvP a lot, that's kind of what I do mainly, that would be much more useful in the sense that this is what works in PvP, because there's no way I'd use False God in PvE, really. It's not a good set to use. So Auroria is terrible in PvP. There's no way I'm going to use that PvE set in PvP. So you kind of have that already with the trial sets. The question that I would have is, how extreme do you go with that for PvP, though? Is it going to be that these are clearly so much better that any other set in the game, Overland, is just not useful? Or is it that these are 1%, maybe 2% better than the Overland sets? And I think that's how I would do it. Have it where PvP sets are clearly better, but not so much better that you are at a real disadvantage if you use something else.
Yeah, then you can mix and match them, right? You could run one 5-piece PvP set, and you could pair it with your favorite proc or your favorite whatever else, and still be middle of the road. But yeah, just a thought. See what your thoughts were on that.
I think. Sorry, go on, Icy.
I was just thinking that I'm not sure if it'd be a good idea if when they release sets, they kind of maybe hint or make some sort of acknowledgement or notification like, hey, this was designed to be used for PvP. Just like a clear, like, hey, this is kind of what we intended this for, and they kind of left it at that. I kind of wish when they make sets, they kind of just include hey, this is kind of what we were thinking about when we came up with this idea. We hope it would be used for PvP, and then come to find out in a couple of weeks or a month later that this is probably the best PvE set in the game.
I think,
because like, what do you think the mindset was when they designed Crimson? Was that going to be like a PvE set, or was this intended for a PvP set? As an example.
I think maybe this sounds a bit harsh, but I think you have kind of like a ceiling for skill level. You have like a floor for skill level. And I think their mindset with that was, how high can we bring the floor up to meet the ceiling? And I think that is when Crimson got born. That they basically went, let's put the floor and the ceiling together, and we'll make Crimson just bridge that gap. So I think they weren't thinking of PvE whatsoever, because it does nothing in PvE. Like, you can't use it in Mistform. The damage is so in PvE because of mobs' resistances and stuff. So I like the idea of developers telling you, is this a PvP set or a PvE set? But it might divide the community into basically 2 games. So it's a real slippery slope.
Yeah. And I guess, Grim, to what you were saying with the to access some of those sets, you have to say spend alliance points. You got to do PvP content, and I guess a little bit to what Unify was saying too. That I think I'd be all right with that, because if, say, you have to do PvP content to access those sets, you kind of already get that with some of the PvE content, and even just like when you play the game, if you want to get higher DPS numbers for your parses and stuff, you have to get better sets, and you have to go through content in a weekend state, and then once you beat it, then you kind of level up, evolve, whatever you want to call it. You progress to get closer to achieving that set, and then once you get it, now you're kind of going on to the next level where you're doing way more damage, or just improving from where you were before. So that experience where you start out with nothing, or just like, say, level 1, and then you unlock things as you go, that's kind of like already part of the game. So if, say, you're getting smashed in BGs because everyone's using a PvP set, that's just kind of par for the course, where eventually you're going to be there too, and then you're going to be smashing on the plebs and stuff, and then the cycle kind of just continues.
Yeah, if they stick with it. A lot of people get discouraged and they don't continue the course. They don't like that maturation process.
But that's
growth.
life. That's life.
Yeah.
Like,
we realize this because we're adults for the most part, but kids, young adults don't realize that. They haven't experienced a lot of life yet, and so so it's a really tough experience for them.
I don't know, man. There's some 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that that might kind of make me think a little bit. So
Yeah, I think of 1 or 2 people like, yeah, they probably will struggle with that.
Yeah.
I think though, like, what the idea has merit 100%. I think if it was just a rules, like a minor difference, like 2%, that's 2% is not going to be the difference between you killing someone or you not. If you're a good player, you can bridge that 2% difference. If it was this PvP set is a 20% difference, then there obviously is an issue. But I like the idea that you could like level up, and they could use the alliance ranks where you can only buy the sets when you're at a certain rank, for example.
Ooh,
and that would
that'd
really
be
give
cool.
you that kind of, oh, well, I've progressed. There's like a base set of stuff I could use for PvP that's tradable, but then there's like this alliance locked stuff that's like your trial gear that you have to do that. So in PvP, you have to be at this rank to then buy this item, and it might be 2% better than the other stuff, which is minor, but like Full Squad is great in PvE, but it's not the best set. You can be competitive without it, and I think that's the kind of approach they should do with this idea if they went with it.
Yeah. What's your guess on how the MMR works? Like, before, everybody had a guess, and then with Flames of Ambition, things kind of changed a little bit. What's your current guess on how the MMR is working or should work?
I think MMR is obviously it's matchmaking rank. So matchmaking rank, for those people unaware, I think there's something in place, but I think it's really heavily weighted against either score or time spent. So as somebody who plays different characters, and I've also moved recently, I noticed there's periods where I might not be on a character for 3 or 4 weeks, and I might be in like high MMR matches. I'm fighting groups, pre-made, proper sweaty players, and then I go back onto that character that I haven't used in 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm fighting really bad players. I'm like, hang on, my MMR's changed, and whether that's because it's time spent, because I haven't been on that character that much, or are they rating it based on score? I would suspect it's rated on score, because that's how the leaderboards are ranked. So I think they probably go, you've earned this much score, so you're now effectively 1 million points. Whereas Dan was 800,000 points, and he hasn't PvP'd for 3 weeks, and now you're 1.2 million, so you're clearly better than Dan, which doesn't really reflect actually that sometimes you can just be good at the game whether you're lower rank or not. So I think it's based on score and time.
Yeah, I noticed that because I bounce around on all my different characters. I spend enough time to test different builds and test Theorycraft and take it out for a spin in Battlegrounds or Cyrodiil, and that's been my experience too. Is by the time I circle back around, I'm in a lower MMR, and people will comment on that too. They're like low MMR, and but at the end of the day, most people hang out in a low to mid-level MMR anyways. That's just where they PvP at, regularly. How many people do you think's in the high MMR? Is that like the top 25% of PvPers? What's your thoughts?
I think it depends on how you view MMR, to be honest. The idea in principle, from what I understand, is MMR should match a player of a similar skill level to somebody of a similar skill level. So you could make the argument that every match is a high MMR for that individual because you're fighting people of a competitive skill level. That's how it should work. Sometimes it doesn't follow that system, and I know there's issues with it, but it does catch up. So I think there are people who go, "Oh, you're on a low MMR," and I've had people comment on my videos as well before, and then I find them in the same match as me, and I kill them loads, and they're like, "What?" So, I had somebody in Outcast Discord, girl, and she just was going, "Oh, low MMR," like on 8 of my videos. Bumped her in a match, and I think I hunted her down, and I think I killed her like 15 times. She didn't kill me once, just to prove a point. And then I was just like, the MMR system. This is not like PUBG. It's not like Fortnite. It's not like Call of Duty where they might have different systems. This MMR system just doesn't work. So I don't think you can say I'm in the top 25% because you move up and down way too much. Like I was on my Magic and Necromancer earlier. I haven't used him in about 6 weeks, and I was in a BG with people who are 90 CP, and people who are 90 CP do not have proper gear. And I think I had like 60 kills, and that happened for like 3 or 4 matches in a row. When I'm like, clearly I am in the wrong BG, and I'm showing this by dominating the leaderboard time and time again, but it takes a while for it to catch up.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like a 25% here or there. I think people just have this mindset and like to think they are better than they are necessarily. People like to be elitist, sadly, in this type of game. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, I would like to see that mathematical equation laid out somewhere. The exact equation that MMR is based off of. That would be awesome to know what it is.
I think.
I was gonna say I don't think I don't think I've ever heard of any particular game that released the behind the scenes, the equation or whatever you want to call it, to how they do their matchmaking. Unless it was something like, I know back when I was playing Destiny 1 where they said, hey, we're basing our matchmaking system on connection speeds, right? So you're going to get trash players versus great players. As long as you can see where the bullets are coming, that's all we care about. They did that for a while, and then they changed it to, hey, we're going to base it on actual skill level, so it'll be more competitive and stuff. But then the problem they wound up is that I can't see who the hell's killing me half the time. So then it's just like, why am I getting killed when I'm standing behind something when clearly on their screen I'm still like 10 feet back? And the consensus was, yeah, just connection speed doesn't matter, because for me, I don't care if I'm going against like the great players, as long as I can see and I actually have if I actually can dodge roll or do my best with great connection speed and everything, and I still get smashed, that's fine. I just don't want to killed when I'm clearly hiding, but obviously it's not what they see. So, I don't know.
No, I think you kind of bring up some good points with how do they rank it, and it could simply be connection speed. Zos has so many performance issues. I wouldn't put it like past them if that is literally it, because there are times where you go, I should not be fighting these people. Like it's just really, really imbalanced, but you still get those matches even to this very day.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic. That would be another thing that while you have the president on the phone and you're telling him about, heavy attack Hero and light attack Larry and Misty. Oh, Mr. President, by the way, Could you tell me what the mathematical equation to the MMR is? Like, can we just make that public knowledge, and so that way everybody it's out there and everybody knows what to expect. So
I
You
mean,
do. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I'll throw it real quick. The even if say they release the equation or whatever, it's going to come down to okay. They say they base it on skill level, right? And let's just pretend connection speed isn't connection to the thing is totally fine. Well, then the problem is how long are you going to be waiting in a queue for a BG? Are you going to be waiting 3 hours just so you can fight people of your similar skill level?
yeah,
That's the other problem you're going to face into is that they probably have some sort of priority system where, yeah, it's connection speed, but sure, they try maybe for the first 5-10 minutes to queue you up with people of your similar skill. But then if ain't got nobody, it's like, well, let's take Bad Larry and throw him in there too. And just take, hey, this guy's CPU, 160, whatever. He's got to learn it someday. We'll just throw these guys in there and whatever. So
yeah.
I'm
You
sure
have a
that,
point.
yeah, I'm sure like that's probably a lot of how a lot of the situations that we come across like kind of happen.
You have
I
a
think,
great point.
and maybe this is very like tinfoil hat, but is there even an MMR? Like people have been saying, like it's true though. People have asked the developers time and time again, and they won't budge and go, "Oh, it's based on score." It's because they could give a very just general statement. It's based on skill level. It's based on connection. It's based on score earned. It's based on accolades. It's based on leaderboard. It doesn't have to be in great detail, but they haven't, and we're just seeing these really extreme situations where you're like, I should not be fighting this person.
Yeah. Well, now you have me thinking they're sitting around in a room, and every time somebody does a video or a post about MMR, they all look at each other and start laughing, and they're like, "Who even said there's an MMR? You idiots!"
It'd be like a drinking game, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Everybody take a drink. Boom. MMR. Yeah. Good call. Yeah. Have they even mentioned MMR before? Let's go back and review the tape. Jeez. So how much time do you spend doing low BBGs? We got about 10 minutes left, but how much time do you spend doing low BBGs?
I do 0, basically.
Okay.
I tried
that
it.
was easy.
Yeah. The combat's really slow. Just one thing I'd say really quick on it is if you're somebody who does low BGs and then you go into normal BGs, it's very different. Like you will go from being a very slow combat where you might be doing 3,000 hits to you're now taking 8,000 per hit, so it's much faster. And I think that's the reason why I don't like it, because low BGs is really, really slow. So that's why I don't enjoy that. And I think that's why those people who like it, they don't like normal BGs, because it's much more fast paced damage wise.
Yeah, I like the low BBGs just for the maturation process for the people that are having a hard time with line of sight and all the basics. Start learning that stuff in low BBGs, because exactly what you talked about, the damage is lower, it's slower pace. It gives them a little bit more time to think, because the biggest thing I noticed with starting PvPers is they start to panic or get fat fingers as soon as they're fighting, like the adrenaline's going, like, oh, he's trying to kill me, and oh, I'm trying to kill him, but I'm not using the right abilities. And it gives them more time to maintain their buffs and all that stuff. So I like that. I like low BBGs too. I feel like it's a good it's like pre-K,
It's training wheels, isn't it?
It's training wheels. It's teaching them, the how-to of PvP. So I really like low BBGs for that. I noticed that scaling in low BBGs is interesting. I can pull off certain builds and certain play styles in low BBGs. And then as I hit right around level 30 or 40, just before CP and low BBGs, the builds or playstyle starts to normalize, and I start to really get a good idea of whether this is going to be viable in game or not. And then I get to end. This is why I've leveled 100 characters at this point. I level a specific play style all the way through low BBGs to CP, and then see if it's viable in game. But what I'm noticing right now is, and you probably haven't noticed it because you don't like low BBGs, is the transmute crystal reconstruction thing. People are reconstructing proc sets in low BBGs and reconstructing all of the the major problematic sets, and
That's
they're going,
hilarious.
yeah, and they're going through and just absolutely decimating. And I haven't done it yet, but I wanted to see what your thoughts are on that. Like, don't you think we should probably limit the transmute crystal reconstruction for PvP purposes to, you know, CP and above?
I like the fact that you added the yet caveat to it, though. Like, I haven't done it yet, so I will probably tomorrow. But,
Yeah, well,
Um,
like you said, I mean, we probably have to start drawing attention to it, and the only way to do that is make enough noise, right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it shouldn't be a thing. I think if they've designed the sets to be kind of balanced around 160, and you're giving all that free damage to people who don't have skills to react because you can't actually use your heal skills because they're locked because you're not high enough, you can see that sounds problematic instantly. So yeah, it should probably be locked to 160 CP. Maybe that's something you unlock once you get there. Like, you can't use the system at all until you're 160 CP, because it saves you from wasting crystals as well, because new players do that too.
Yeah, I just noticed, like, I'm doing a low BBG, and I have no access to any type of cleanse, and someone's running the is there no one else build, the one butt build,
Yep.
and I just get hit with a poison injection, and I have 50 things ticking on me, and I'm like, I have no way, I can't out heal this. There's no out healing this. I can't cleanse it. Like, it's a kill every time. There's no counterplay to it. And I was like, the bad thing about it, the truly bad thing, is that's going to be someone else's first experience to PvP, because this is a low BBG. You know, that's their first experience in PvP, is get it running into those. And that's my fear, is I don't want that to be their first experience in PvP.
Yeah, I think you put somebody off. That's the reality. Is if you're somebody who doesn't like losing, which sadly a lot of people are like that, or they don't see that you have to kind of practice to get better, you're just gonna go, no, this is not for me. You won't do it. So it totally switches people off potentially.
Yeah. I should have looked to see if that was Is There No One Else. I know he has a PC account. He probably would have messaged me and said, "Gotcha."
Yeah, no, he would have. To be
Yeah.
fair, I don't think he's that cheesy or that, because that is really, you have to be proper, cheesy to do that. To go to the hassle of reconstructing proc sets to just get a slight edge in below level BGs.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then on top of that, it wasn't him, but on top of that, the people were really, really toxic, messaging everybody and like, get good and you're terrible or you're bad. So, a lot of toxic people.
Yep.
I do think that is a good change, though, to make the system where it's only available on, like, even if you make a new character, it's only available once you hit CP, so that way it won't allow people to use the transmutation system. But also, what they could do is just say, hey, you can only reconstruct things, regardless of whether you're CP or not, only at CP 160 or above. Because I
Yeah.
think that would also solve the problem. Because I think right now the way they have it is, like, for instance, mythics, you can only craft them at CP 160, even though I'm level 10. I could craft one, but I wouldn't be able to use it. And but equally, say, if I was going to make Crimson at level 10 Crimson, right now I could do it. But with this new system, I could only make it at CP 160. But if I really wanted a level 10 Crimson that bad, I'd have to go in there with a pre-made or something, and I'd have to go, where everybody else is CP except for me. I'm on my level 10 Lobby, and I do this a bunch of times where I get actual Crimson gear level 10, but that's so much work. I don't think people would do it. So I think that would be a more acceptable route
Yeah,
if people
I
were going to
think so.
cheese the Crimson at low levels.
Yeah.
Just make it really hard for people to do.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think they don't let mythics in there for that reason, because it's really broke. And now that they buffed all the proc sets to be really broke, you just say it's problematic.
Yeah. I just don't want that to be everybody's first experience. And I know when we were talking about it on Is There No One Else's episode, that was one of the things, and there was a really long back and forth conversation with somebody that said, you sound like an elitist, taking away my proc sets, and You know, I get that they earn the right. Like going around and adding all these things to their sticker books is a effort, takes effort. So I get that. I'm not trying to take that away from you, but I also what I'm trying to do is take away that bad possible experience for new PvPers and running into you. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to prevent that. So running into good players in low BBGs is one thing, but running into players that have unavoidable, unmitigated, just
Yep.
is a different thing. So
Yeah, it doesn't promote healthy gameplay.
no. So you've got a YouTube channel. Where else can we find you? Are you on Twitter, Instagram? Do you have a website? What are all the different links that people can find in the descriptions below?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with myself on social media and stuff, we have Facebook. So I use that more so. I also use Twitch as well. So I stream there typically on the weekends, like with life and stuff. So YouTube, Twitch, Facebook are the main ones. We also have a Discord with nearly 800 members in there where you can obviously chat with myself and other people, which is really laid back just to really get build help or just talk about the game, like really, really chill. And yes, there's all those kind of places really. We haven't got Twitter yet, but that may be in the future.
Awesome. As far as support goes, what's the best ways that people can support you? I know that you got merchandise.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't actually published that yet, but I will. So people will know, they'll see it on YouTube. But yeah, so if you want to support myself, the biggest thing, in all honesty, first and foremost, is watching the videos really, really helps. And like with the YouTube algorithm and stuff, watching more, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, that really, really helps. But if you are somebody who wants to go, that bit extra to really help me financially, to make videos, to do this, more as a job, then we have merchandise. So there's a website, there's a link in the YouTube videos. We also have a Patreon where you can get access to the videos early, get like extra help in Discord and stuff. So there's like lots of ways. It doesn't have to be with money and stuff. It could just be commenting, liking and stuff, or it could be, above and beyond.
That's awesome. So we'll have all of this in the descriptions below. And then I think I'll even link the heavy attack hero, the light attack Larry, and Misty builds in there. So that way we have those where we're going to release those into the world.
Yeah, they're broke. So they're broke.
Did you have anything else, Icy?
Just a reminder for everybody, if we have anybody new, that we do post a link to Anchor, where if you just want the audio version of this episode and all the other episodes we've done, you can find it there. And Unified, do you have any final words before I close it out?
Nothing really other than, obviously stay safe with the crazy world and stuff. But, it's been a real blast just doing this, hanging out with you guys, chatting. And yeah, just obviously I hope everybody continues to enjoy the games they play.
Awesome. And with that said, we'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
You're going to say bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.